Welcome to another short talk. Today I'm talking about how to remedy Saturn, a classical approach to Sade Sati, and other issues based on Brihat Parasara Hora Shastra. So, just to start off with, you want to look at some main considerations since Shani is often, and I think rightly so, one of the more feared planets in Vedic astrology, amongst particularly Rahu and Ketu as well. Some people like to downplay the effects, but one of the facts is most people who come to astrologers are often suffering from some effects of these planets. To just put it pie in the sky as if it wasn't, you can handle it, you can, it's not a big deal. It can be. So, and sometimes it's not as big as a deal either. So, it goes both sides of the spectrum, but overall, Shani is a planet to take seriously. Now, there are many ways that one can actually remedy Saturn, depending on the chart and the trouble that he may be giving to you. So, many people just give often, a standard Shani mantra, some kind of practice. Maybe they read Dr. Svoboda's book on it, do some general things. But there's actually, when you start getting deeper into remedies and different mantras and whatnot, you actually want to really look what is that planet doing in the chart, and what specific qualities and energies do we need to evoke to properly remedy that Saturn, because a debilitated Saturn's going to need and act very different than maybe if he's in his friend's house and with the eighth lord, or likewise if he's in a good position. So it's always important to look at the chart, even for things with remedies. So Parash himself doesn't really recommend a graha worship of Shani, and these are those quite often the standard mantras you see given around the internet, on YouTube channels, and lots of places, particularly northern India, so more popular. But these mantras worshiping the planets. So that's not really what's in Parashara, and it's a very simple and even possibly not the best idea to do that, because when you're doing that, these Graha mantras, they're actually strengthening Saturn. You're saying, come into my life, Saturn. Give me what you have to give me. And depending on that place in your chart, if Saturn's not the best place or what have you, then you could be calling in some extra troubles. And this is kind of a standard thing. If he's better placed, he may do wonders for you. May work much better. Or some of those troubles, if you can handle it okay, then yes, you may learn, but you learn through suffering, which has its place. But if there's other softer, more benign methods to deal with difficult issues in your chart, why not, right? So anyways, these are kind of the basic main considerations you want to have as your backdrop when you're looking at things out there and what to do. Now, if we look to what Parashara actually recommends to pacify Saturn, it's actually the Saturn Gayatri. And this is from the Rig Veda, Mandala 10, Sukta 9. And he recommends 23,000 repetitions of this. And this is Parashara's main method when directly dealing with the planets. This is kind of pacification method here. And if we look to what this actually translates as, we have a nice translation here. May the goddess favor us with peace, and bless us with divine water to drink, and let health and strength flow to us. So the key thing to notice here is when we're looking to pacify Shani, we're actually uh, we're evoking opposite energies, if you will, things that we need when Saturn's really hitting us hard. So if he's hitting us hard, we may be affecting our body, emaciation. This old guy, which is the opposite of that, which is this divine water, this water element, healing us, bringing us back to life, making our bodies more succulent. There's this opposite effect going on here, and that's really important to consider with what you're calling in and what you're bringing into your life. So, in this, once again, it's just a general remedy given by Parasara if Shani is giving you a hard time, and there are others. So this brings up one other point that some people say there's no remedies given Parasara, or when there's a whole chapter on not only the planetary Shanti, but it's littered throughout the text, especially throughout the Dasha chapters. There's remedies, other chapters as well. It's throughout. So some people like to say that this idea of propitiation, and there's lots of other chapters on things like a Sandhi. Sandhi birth or Amavasya, and different pujas. They like to say all these chapters were just inserted in, and this is a big thing with Parasara. And people will say for whatever reasons, scholarly or not, or based on their own views of astrology coming from I don't know where, they'll take things out and not feel that we're not in Parasara. But it's what we have to work with, and it's like I said, it's these kind of remedies are in many different places in the text. So if you're just going to say they're not in there, then you have to, if you want to do proper analysis, you have to pick out why all these different places, where are they coming from? Why were they put in here? It's definitely an integral feature of those teachings in a system. So a side point, but an important point, because you'll see this stuff come up. So just one other thing to take into consideration. Now, like I said earlier, there are different practices one can do depending on the placement of Shani and what troubles he's giving you specifically. So like I said, the last one's a good, nice general pacification remedy. Then we get into Sade Sati, which is oftentimes one of the most feared placements in the Jyotish chart. And this is, most people, if you know astrology or watching this video, probably familiar with it. For those who don't, plenty of information out there, but very briefly, if you don't, this is the 7.5-year period when Saturn goes over your natal moon. And key thing here too is that often the most disruptive period is when Saturn's going right over the moon. And once again, it's doesn't have to be totally horrible all the time, depending on your chart, but it is Saturn going over your moon. It brings up things in some manner. And so the basic traditional remedies we could have in this instance, just as an illustration of some of the variation we can have with these practices, is either Hanuman Chalisa, which is also a nice one when Saturn's transiting over your lagna, giving you health problems as well, or the Rudra Chamaka, which is great prayer where you're propitiating all these different things that are within you and really finding peace and wealth and all this stuff within your own self. Quite an intense prayer. But these are just some ideas of things that one might actually do to get through the Sade Sati in a more harmonious fashion. Instead of calling on Saturn, especially if it's difficult, if you're calling on Hanuman, which, there are more specific things you can use too, depending on the issues he's bringing up. But, once again, that idea of vitality, strength, strong prana coming up with him, it's much more powerful and much more needed in these kind of instances. And so it's good to look at your chart. And, there's other placements of Saturn besides Sade Sati, um, or him going over your lugna, or, you're going through a general Saturn period. There, things can be tweaked mildly. So, and all this requires, of course, the interpretation and all that of a properly trained Jyotishi. So, that's all I wanted to share today. Just some other information, just primarily because I haven't seen this type of thing spoken about much elsewhere, and just want to give some people a little more insight into what's actually in Brihat Parasara Hora Shastra and what is being taught there, and what the more traditional approach is to this. So I hope this has been helpful and worth your time. Please visit darshanproject.org for more teachings, classes, that kind of thing. It's all donation based. Give what you can, learn what you can. And thanks again.